Hello, hello, and welcome to When Docs Talk. Morgan, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, Doctor?
Good, good. So in
Awesome.
this segment, we are talking about we're taking the pulse on our mental health, right? So we're looking to see if we are okay. Are you okay? Are we okay? There's a lot of people we think might not be okay, but don't really have that forum to express that and don't know what to look for. So, as I mentioned before, this is a really important episode. On that note, how are you doing? Are you okay, Morgan?
I'm okay. I'm hanging in there. It's not been easy, but I'm hanging in there. Discussing, trying to keep open discussion with my family, with my peers, find out how everyone else is doing because it's been really hard over the last 6 months. But I'm
Yeah.
hanging in there.
Well, you keep hanging in there. So I want to bring on a special guest who can help us a little bit in our discussion on reflecting in mental and emotional health and wellness. I want to put up her picture. So we are so fortunate to be joined by Dr. Dion Metzger, who is a board certified psychiatrist who manages her own practice in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Metzger is currently on faculty as professor of psychiatry at Emory University School of Medicine, as well as the Medical College of Georgia and Morehouse School of Medicine. She's a mental health expert who's been featured on The Doctors, Oprah Winfrey Network, ABC, NBC, HLN, and even in the New York Times. We are so fortunate to be joined by this wonderful expert, this fierce and beautiful lady. I'm going to bring her on stage to see. Welcome, Dr.
Hi.
Metzger.
I feel so great with that introduction. Thank you very much.
Well, you're going to
Hey,
need an
Dr.
introduction.
Metzger.
Hi, Morgan.
You're just great. How are you doing?
I am doing well considering the climate, I should say.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, let's just jump right into it and talk about that climate. Everyone keeps talking about 2020. I can't wait till it's over. 2020, it's the worst year ever. So everyone kind of collectively agrees that 2020 is a big thumbs down, double thumbs down. I want to know from your opinion as a medical and mental health expert, actually, as a psychiatrist, what you feel are the biggest challenges to mental health in 2020 specifically.
The thing with 2020 is just the uncertainty, right? So there's a big play on fear here. So we have like the pandemic where we don't know what can happen and we don't know an end date. So that alone is causing anxiety because we don't know when the lifestyle that we're living now will come to a close and we'll get back to what our normal is. But then we also have, everything else that's going in the world, like right now, like in terms of racial justice and all of that. So I think it's like you were getting hit over the head with multiple things going on all at once. Oh, and it's election year. So, it's just like there's so many things going on. And I think because there's so much uncertainty attached to every single thing, because we don't know who the president's going to be. We don't know, what is going to come of this in terms of our protests and everything. And the pandemic, we don't know when a vaccine's coming. We don't necessarily know when we're going to be able to be outside and comfortable outside. So, I think the uncertainty has been the biggest issue of 2020, where we know we're in a bad time, but we don't know when the bad times are going to stop.
Right.
And that's what makes people really, really anxious.
There's no light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, man. I mean, but sooner or later, we got to get out of the tunnel, don't you think?
That's right.
I was like, when the year started and Kobe died, I was like, "Ooh, this is it for 2020."
Oh, no.
I was like, "Oh, we're done. We're done."
Do you know what, Dr. Metzger? What I realize is that there is so much that has happened that I think that we are unable to digest it. We almost forget. When you just said Kobe died, I almost forgot that also happened. And that was devastating to me and a lot of people at the time.
And I was like, and my husband and I, we're like, oh yeah, this is the tragedy. This is what 2020 will be remembered for. No. We have more. So yeah, I mean, I think just boom, 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 everything. It's just like after a while, we were starting to kind of build this callus and this Teflon, like, okay, what else can happen? Because we've lost so many greats just I mean, we're only in September. We're not even done with the year. So I think just kind of having everything happen back to back has been really what's had its impact on us.
So,
go
ahead, Morgan. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to piggyback off of that, Dr. Metzger. It's almost like, okay, so we lost Kobe in February. That was really devastating for the world. Mm-hmm. And then now we're fast forward to August. We're still losing these huge celebrities. And now you hear the big names and now you're crying you're so emotional as if this was someone that was close to you. And you know, we all felt for Kobe Bryant and his family, but now it's like, oh my gosh, who's next?
Yeah,
Just
and absolutely.
what's coming.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I'm to the point that if I see something trending on Twitter, I'm like, oh no, who died? Like,
Right. You're almost scared to admit, right?
I found myself relieved to be like, oh, it's just an embarrassing video. Whew, okay. Yes. I mean, it's just at that point right now, it's just so much for us to deal with. And, you know, like Chadwick, losing him, we didn't even know he was sick. So that's another perfect example of just us being blindsided. And a lot of people, I've heard this happen over and over again, where people are like, I don't understand how you can grieve somebody you didn't meet. And you absolutely can.
Absolutely.
You absolutely can grieve somebody you didn't meet. Because, like, for example, Kobe or Chadwick, we've watched them in these roles as a professional athlete or as an actor, or we've gone through the journey with them because we're watching it. So very much so you can be part of, you know, the grieving people around them, because us watching their journey is being part of their lives.
Absolutely. I have a quick question. Do you feel like it's only unique subsets of our population here in America that are experiencing challenges to their mental health because of these losses? Because you mentioned quite a few things. You mentioned Kobe and Chadwick Boseman. You mentioned the racial tensions. And I'm sure that there's a part of us, maybe our viewers, who are like, well, that's kind of just Black folk.
Yeah, but is it really about Black folk? Like, are the protesting and everything, is it really? Because it's just unrest everywhere. Right. But I get what you're saying. But yeah, I mean, and I'm just thinking about the ones that kind of hit me to the core. But yeah, we're just losing people. Like, I mean, even Ginsburg, like we're just, you know, it's to the point that we're losing so many greats. And so I definitely think, you know, definitely people feel more of the loss of somebody within their race, or somebody, you know, that they have some more of a tie to, but it's just difficult. But, you know, the thing with racial tension, I think that's the issue, is that it's no longer just a Black people problem. You know, it's a humanity problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I think that's the difference in 2020 as the previous years, is like, now it's in your face. Like, you got to do something. If you watch the NBA playoffs, you're going to see Black Lives Matter on the board, you know, like on the court. Like it is now in your face. You can't just deny it and act like it's not there.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the more personal hits to us. So even if you didn't know any of the celebrities, even if you haven't personally been affected by the coronavirus, most people know someone who has been affected by the coronavirus. Several of us have actually experienced loss from the coronavirus. And so I want to get your perspective on how this might be affecting us from a mental health perspective. Coronavirus specifically.
It's just really, really difficult. First of all, we've never experienced anything like this. So we have never been in a pandemic. So let's just go ahead and say that off the bat, that this is just something very brand new, and it's very scary. We've only seen this in films. Like, we've never actually been part of this. And what happened is the anxiety started to creep up. I mean, I think when March 1st hit, we're like, okay, you know, we're going to be inside for a few weeks. We'll get through this, you know, put on a mask.
Right.
But it happened with me, where I started noticing that the circle started getting smaller. Like, I'd hear of somebody dying from COVID, but now it's like my neighbor's parents, you know, so it got closer and closer. So it was almost like the walls were becoming closer on us, and it made us feel more anxious. So it's definitely had a huge impact in terms of, you know, it just not being a problem of the elderly or the immunocompromised. It is now something, you know, even right now, young adults is I think the growing age population. So it's something that has become very, very real. And once again, just like not something we can brush off, and we have to move forward. But it has become progressively scarier. And I think that has contributed to a lot of increased anxiety going on during this time.
We at WDT would like to take a moment to remind everyone out there that the coronavirus is impacting us all, and that we do need to take serious measures to protect ourselves and our loved ones. So now, a word from one of our friends of WDT, Dr. Anwar Osborne, who's going to share with us a few tips about how to wear masks properly. Please remember that mask wearing, hand washing, and proper social distancing really do make a difference. We at WDT hope that this makes you smile while it gives you a few tips about how to wear those masks. And now over to Dr. Anwar Osborne.
Hi, I'm Dr. Anwar Osborne. There's been some confusion lately about wearing masks, and I want to give you the facts. Masks are like your drawers. Follow drawers rules. Rule number 1, don't let anything hang out. Nothing should be peeking out of your drawers ever. None of this. None of this. You can't bird box the Rona. Rule number 2, don't adjust in public. Would you really dig deep to pick out a wedgie? No. Don't adjust them in public with your hands. Your hands carry germs. Wash those nasty things before you put your mask on and before you take it off. Rule number 3, keep them off the table. When you go to a restaurant, would you just casually toss your dirty drawers on the table? I don't need your Fruit of the Looms next to my guacamole. No bueno. Rule number 4, wash them or be nasty. If your mask has more stains on it than the Tupperware you use to store your tomato sauce, you got problems. If it has holes in it, trash it. Wash your mask. Rule number 5, don't swap them. Don't share them with your friends. Hey bro, can I borrow your boxes real quick to just run in that store over there? I mean, for real, remember the rules. Don't let anything hang out. Don't adjust anything in public. Keep them off the table, wash them or be nasty. And don't swap them. Most importantly, wear them. Now you know. Don't forget it.
Somebody who's a practicing psychiatrist, I want to know the kind of mental health illnesses that you're seeing more of in 2020. Are you seeing more people coming in for anxiety or depression or mixed?
Right. You know, and I'm seeing more of it, but I don't think it's the pandemic that's causing it. I think people had these symptoms before, and the pandemic turned up the volume on it.
Gotcha.
So they were like, okay, it's time for me to get treatment. So we have definitely seen a rise in anxiety. So like generalized anxiety disorder, which is when somebody has like just persistent worry. And it's worry about things that can actually happen in real life, but they're so worried about it and they're so consumed with it that it interferes with their life. So it interferes with their ability to work or their relationships. So that's one of the most common ones, is generalized anxiety. And of course that can affect sleep, it can affect concentration. And a lot of people don't know that irritability can be an anxiety symptom as well. So especially in generalized anxiety, you might just notice that you're not as patient. You're getting into a little bit more conflict with those around you, where that's actually an anxiety symptom rather than just being in a bad mood. And panic attacks, because once again, we were talking about how everything is contributing to anxiety. We've noticed people having either their first panic attack within these past 6 months, or they notice that their panic attacks have returned. And how you know something is a panic attack as opposed to just being a physical reaction to your anxiety is panic attacks are very sudden and they're very scary. And it's something called impending doom that you experience. So basically you feel like you're going to pass out or you're going to die right at that moment. So that's what distinguishes a panic attack from just having like your heart racing if you're getting ready to walk into a room. So I've definitely seen an increase in the frequencies of it. Benzodiazepines, which are the medications that we use short term to treat anxiety symptoms, like Xanax, Ativan, Valium. We've seen a surge in just the prescriptions getting filled for those type of medications because people are experiencing these acute anxiety symptoms. But with anxiety, the one thing that I found really interesting is that my patients who were dealing with this before, it's like they had the tools for it already. So they're now watching the rest of the world go through what they were going through.
Right.
And they have a little bit of a sense of humor. They're like, well, yeah, see, this is what my world is like.
Right.
They're watching it now. And, so I think it's also giving people a little bit more empathy for those who are dealing with
Absolutely.
symptoms.
Yeah.
I have a question for Dr. Metzger. Dr. Metzger, how do we know? I mean, when you're in the medical community, you know the difference between psychiatry and psychology and counseling. When is it time to make an appointment with you versus your PCP saying, have you spoken to your counselor? When do I need to come and see my psychiatrist?
If you're thinking about it, then come see me. That's how that's straight up. Like if you're thinking about it, So the thing is, with the psychiatrist and the psychologist, often we work together, but there are some psychiatrists who do both. So usually there's a psychologist who does the therapy, or not even just have to be a psychologist, it can be a licensed social worker who does the therapy aspect, and the psychiatrist used to be just for medications. But there are a few of us who do both. So like I do therapy as well as medications, so we can do it all in one-stop shop. But I have a lot of relationships where people have two separate people working with it. But no matter what, even if you just want an evaluation, because a lot of people are like, well, I don't know if this is depression. I don't really know if this is truly a panic attack. Should I go to a psychiatrist? I said, listen, even if it's just an initial evaluation, just for us to tell you what the diagnosis is and what's going on, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to give you medications. That's a really common misconception, that people think that, oh, I only need to go to a psychiatrist if I need medications. No, you go for an evaluation, and for us to kind of give our medical expertise on what we think is going on. And there are some cases that are mild enough that I say, you know what, let's just do therapy and we not do medications. So I always say, just come on in, do the evaluation. And then if you need to be referred to like a lesser level of care, we'll do that part. So it's always worth just coming in so we can see you.
Great. So it's like,
awesome.
if it's on your mind, go ahead and seek. How? How? And because I know a lot of people in some of our episodes that we've had in the past when we've been talking about COVID, a lot of our guests and our viewers have said, you know, even my PCP is closed. Everything is virtual. So people are finding a lot of barriers to accessing care that they previously could. So I want to know, how can somebody access mental health care in 2020?
Well, one positive thing about this is that now, because we flipped to virtual, distance is no longer a barrier. So like I haven't seen a patient in person in 6 months. So everything is virtual. So now like I'm able to see people across the state, all the way down to Savannah, because I'm in Georgia, just in case. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, but I can see people all across the state. So actually it's more convenient now, because we're all mostly virtual, and you can make the appointment and you can be able to be seen pretty quickly, just because we don't have kind of that issue of distance, and we're able to have a little more flexibility with our hours. So during this time, it's actually almost easier to get in and see somebody, and going from there. But I always say, you know, one thing that I love to recommend is psychologytoday.com, because what happens is you can put in exactly what area you live in. You can say what kind of therapist you want, if you want a psychologist, if you want a psychiatrist, and if you have insurance, they'll filter it based on who accepts your insurance. And then you can also filter it based on what you want to work on. So let's say if it's grief or trauma or relationships, or it's for children, you can put that in the filter. So they will tell you exactly what, you know, they can give you the providers that are just for those things that you're looking for. So you don't have to sift through so much, because a lot of people are like, listen, I don't know where to even start to find somebody. But that's a really good place to start. And, you know, and if you have a specific, like, and I always tell people, if you want a therapist who looks like you, there's nothing wrong with that. If you feel like, it's all about who you can connect to. And if you don't have a good rapport with your therapist, you're wasting your time. So if you rather have a female, if you rather have somebody younger, if you rather have somebody of the same race, go ahead and choose it. Look at the pictures. Like, it's okay. It's okay. The whole point is we want you to be as comfortable as possible, and, you know, try to make the search process as convenient as possible so you can get in and get treated.
Great. And just to be sure, that was psychologytoday.com? Okay, because I want our viewers to see that. I think that's important, because some people are like, where do I start? You know?
Right. And they get overwhelmed because you just do like a Google search of like psychiatrists in Atlanta. Okay. Yeah. Okay. What do I do with this list? You know, so the thing is, I think, you know, just narrowing it down and making that less intimidating, the process of finding somebody, going from there. But you'll be surprised. It doesn't happen in our community as much. It's getting better, but like when people have a good therapist, they tend to talk about it. So, you know,
like to tell their friends about it, you mean?
What do you say?
You mean like to tell their friends about it? Or?
Yeah, like word of mouth. So if you know anybody who's in therapy and they're doing really well in it, you know, and they talk, they're vocal about it, ask them, like, who are you seeing?
Yeah.
Word of mouth is also really great too.
That concludes part 1 of our exclusive interview with Dr. Dion Metzger. Please don't miss our next episode with her. We'll be putting out part 2 of our interview with this dynamic psychiatrist. She'll be talking to us about the stigma and cultural barriers in mental health care, and how we can overcome them in order to serve ourselves best and make ourselves as mentally healthy as we can be. She'll also talk about ways that we can optimize our mental health in 2020, things we may need to cut out, and so much more in the interview. So don't miss it. We'll have it up in a few days. In the meantime, have you voted? Here are just a few words about how important voting is. Get out there and do it.
Hello, and welcome to When Docs Talk. Just a public service announcement. Please vote. For those of you who had voted and contributed to the record numbers of early voting, thank you for doing so. In my state, we get this little peach sticker. I am very proud of it. I secured my vote. I'm a Georgia voter. Those of you who have not, please go out and vote. Early voting is still underway in many states out there, and it's very important. You keep hearing it. It may seem cliched, but I'm going to say it again because it's the truth. We need to vote like our lives depend on it, because they do. For those of you who are not sure who you want to vote for, who have issues with certain candidates or others, still vote. Vote for the best person for your interest, for your community's interest, whoever you think that is. Just get out there and vote. And for those of you who are intimidated by the long lines, understand that there are people who literally died for you to be able to be in that line. Don't forget them. Let them guide you as you stand in line. See if your state has an app that tells you which voting sites have the shorter wait times. There are ways to get around it. Bring a lawn chair. Bring some good music to listen to. Whatever you do, make sure you get one of these. Well, whatever it looks like in your state, get out there and vote. We got to change things, and you can make a difference. It's worth it. People have died for that right, and I want to see you out there. Take care from When Docs Talk.